Silent Watchers. Antarctic Research Station Epsilon, 2034. Dr. Samira Karim shivered despite her thermal suit as she stood at the edge of the ice shaft. 800 meters below, buried for what her team estimated to be 40,000 years, lay something impossible. Final decom protocols complete, her assistant reported through the comms. The chamber is sealed and ready. Samira nodded, her breath fogging in the sub-zero air of the excavation tunnel. Begin the final descent. The platform hummed beneath her feet as it lowered her into the abyss. The massive ice walls glowed with embedded lights, revealing layers of Earth's history passing by like pages in an ancient book. But it wasn't Earth's history that had brought 300 scientists and military personnel to this remote location under absolute secrecy. It was what didn't belong here. The platform settled with a soft chime. Before her stood a sealed, transparent chamber, and within it, partially embedded in the ancient ice, was an object approximately 4 meters long. Its surface was a matte black material that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. No seams, no rivets, no sign of conventional manufacturing. Unmistakably artificial, she whispered, approaching the chamber. And unmistakably not ours. Colonel Marcus Way stepped beside her, his normally impassive face betraying the slightest hint of awe. The dating is confirmed. Multiple methodologies, all consistent. Whatever this is, it was here before modern humans had even evolved beyond hunter-gatherers. She pressed her hand against the transparent barrier. This changes everything, Colonel. No, Doctor. Way's expression hardened. This changes nothing, because as far as the world is concerned, this discovery doesn't exist. United Nations Special Committee Meeting, New York, 2035. Classified Level Omega. Transcript excerpt. CCCURETRI, General OKAFOR. The evidence is conclusive. We are not alone, and more importantly, we have been observed. The Antarctic object appears to be a sophisticated probe of extraterrestrial origin. The technological implications are staggering, but the security implications are what concern us today. Chinese DELEGAT. If this technology could be reverse engineered. US DELEGAT. That's not the point. Something sent this to Earth. Something that might still be watching. Russian DELEGAT. Or something that might return. CCCURETREGNEURL. Precisely. This committee must reach consensus on humanity's response. Do we announce this discovery to the world, or do we maintain secrecy while we prepare? Indian DELEGAT. Prepare for what exactly? CCCURETREGNEURL. For the possibility that the next visitors might not simply leave us a probe. Silence for 12 seconds. British DELEGAT. The panic such an announcement would cause. The disruption to global markets, religious institutions. Brazilian DELEGAT. So we lie to the entire human race. CCCURETREGNEURL. No, we protect them. Dr. Karim, please present your proposal. DRKARM. The Nightfall Initiative. A multinational effort operating in absolute secrecy, dedicated to understanding this technology and developing defensive capabilities. Not just military responses, but diplomatic and anthropological preparations as well. We must be ready on all fronts. Japanese DELEGAT. The resources required would be enormous. DRKARM. Yes, and they must be diverted without public knowledge. US DELEGAT. Black budgets within black budgets. CCCURETREGNEURL. I don't see an alternative. All in favor. Vote recorded. 15 in favor, 2 abstentions. CCCURETREGNEURL. Then it's settled. As of this moment, the Nightfall Initiative exists. And as of this moment, none of us can ever speak of it outside this room. Nightfall Command, Mariana Trench Facility, 2079. Commander Elena Reyes stared at the holographic display floating above the command table. The underwater base had been her home for 6 years now, one of 12 secret facilities established by the Nightfall Initiative across Earth and throughout the solar system. "Report status on the Sentinel network," she ordered, brushing a strand of gray-streaked hair from her face. Lieutenant Kwan's fingers danced across his console. "All deep space detectors operational. Kuiper Belt outposts reporting normal activity." Elena nodded, allowing herself a moment of pride. Humanity had made technological leaps that would have seemed impossible before the Antarctic discovery. Artificial gravity, advanced propulsion systems, energy weapons, all developed in secret, all preparing for a day they hoped would never come. "Commander," called out Communications Officer Diaz, "we're receiving a priority transmission from Outpost Themis." Elena straightened. Themis was their furthest installation, positioned at the heliopause, the very edge of the sun's influence. "Put it through." The hologram shifted to show the haggard face of Captain Arjun Mehta. Static rippled across his image. Even with their advanced quantum communication arrays, the distance made transmission difficult. "Commander Reyes, we've intercepted communications." His voice crackled. "Not human in origin. We've been analyzing the patterns for 3 weeks to be certain." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the base's temperature. Translation: partial. "It appears to be between multiple vessels coordinating course corrections. They're on an approach vector toward our solar system." The command center fell silent. This was the moment they had spent nearly 50 years preparing for. "How many vessels?" Elena asked, her voice steady despite the thundering of her heart. "Based on communication patterns." Mehta hesitated. "At least 70 distinct signatures, possibly more." Admiral Chen, who had been silently observing from the edge of the room, stepped forward. "Estimated time of arrival: 8 months, assuming current velocity. They're traveling at approximately 0.15 c." Elena exchanged glances with Admiral Chen. 15% of light speed, far beyond anything humanity had achieved with conventional propulsion, though their secret quantum fold drives were theoretically capable of more. "Have they detected Themis?" she asked. "Negative. We're running dark as per protocols. Maintain observation. Report any change in course or communications. Nightfall command out." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in tense silence. Admiral Chen's weathered face revealed nothing of his thoughts. "It seems the waiting is over, Commander." Elena nodded grimly. "Alert all Nightfall facilities. Initiate Phase Omega." As the command center erupted into controlled activity, Elena moved to the reinforced viewport that looked out into the crushing depths of the Mariana Trench. Bioluminescent creatures drifted past, oblivious to the momentous developments inside. How many of Earth's 8 billion inhabitants were equally oblivious to the approaching storm? And how many would remain so? Orbital Monitoring Station Delta, Earth's moon. 2079. Lieutenant Commander Hiroshi Tanaka had spent 3 years on the dark side of the moon without ever growing tired of the view. Earth hung in the blackness like a perfect blue marble, peaceful from this distance. He wondered how it would look 8 months from now. "Sir," called one of his technicians, "we've received the Phase Omega alert from command." Hiroshi took a deep breath. "Authenticate and acknowledge. Begin activation sequence for the Umbra defense grid." Throughout the station, running lights switched from standard blue to deep red. Below the lunar surface, in massive caverns excavated over decades, dormant systems began to power up. "Should we inform the lunar colonies, sir?" asked the technician. Hiroshi shook his head. The public colonies, the ones everyone on Earth knew about, were kept deliberately separate from Nightfall operations, part of the elaborate deception maintained for generations. Standard protocols. They'll be informed when everyone else is. He turned back to the viewport. It's almost a relief, isn't it, after all these years of preparing, to finally know that it wasn't for nothing. His second-in-command gave him a sidelong glance. "Sir, all this secrecy, all these resources diverted in secret, Part of me always wondered if we were overreacting to a single ancient probe. He gestured toward the stars. Now we know we weren't. Nightfall Orbital Shipyard, Twilight, Mars Orbit, 2079. Dr. Nikolai Volkov floated through the cavernous construction bay, where the crown jewel of humanity's secret defense force was receiving its final modifications. The CSS Phoenix gleamed under the harsh industrial lighting, its hull composed of metamaterials that could bend light around the vessel, rendering it virtually invisible to both conventional and advanced detection systems. At 700 meters long, it was the largest vessel in the Phantom fleet. Nightfall's hidden armada of 17 capital ships and 43 support craft, built in secret throughout the solar system. His tablet chimed with an incoming priority message. Phase Omega had been initiated. Nikolai pushed himself toward the nearest intercom. Attention all personnel. This is Chief Engineer Volkov. We've just received Phase Omega authorization. I want all systems check complete within 48 hours. The Phoenix launches in 3 days. As technicians scrambled to comply, Nikolai made his way to the command deck where Captain Sofia Mendez was reviewing final preparations. So it's happening, she said without looking up as he entered. It wasn't a question. 8 months until they arrive. The Phoenix will be ready. Sofia finally raised her eyes from her displays. Will we? Nikolai had no answer. How could anyone truly be ready for first contact with a potentially hostile alien civilization, especially when most of humanity had no idea it was coming? The public will have to be told soon, he said instead. That decision is above our pay grade, old friend. Sofia gestured to the ship around them. Our job is to make sure there's still a civilization left to inform. The White House, Washington, D.C., 2079. President Adama Nichols stared at the classified briefing before him, his face grave in the soft light of the Oval Office. Across from him sat the current director of the Nightfall Initiative, Dr. James Chen, grandson of Admiral Marcus Chen, who had helped establish the program decades ago. 50 years, the president murmured. For 50 years, the greatest secret in human history has been kept from the public. It was necessary, Dr. Chen replied. The Antarctic discovery showed us how vulnerable we were. We needed time to prepare without causing global panic. And now we have 8 months before we face whatever is coming toward us. Chen leaned forward. Mr. President, it's time to execute the revelation protocols. The public must be informed and prepared, but in a controlled manner. President Nichols walked to the window, looking out at the Washington Monument illuminated against the night sky. How much do we tell them? Everything. The probe, the Nightfall Initiative, the Phantom Fleet, the approaching vessels. Chen's voice was firm. If these visitors prove hostile, Earth will become a battlefield. Our people deserve to know why. And if they panic, if global order collapses before these aliens even arrive, that's why the protocols were designed to be gradual. First, we inform world leaders. Then, a coordinated announcement across all nations simultaneously. Chen stood, joining the president at the window. Humanity is stronger than we give it credit for, Mr. President. Nichols was silent for a long moment, the weight of history heavy upon his shoulders. Finally, he turned. Begin the protocols, Director. God help us all. As Dr. Chen left the Oval Office, President Nichols returned to his desk and pressed a hidden button beneath its edge. A secured terminal rose from the desktop, requiring his biometric authentication. The display illuminated with a single message. Operation Eclipse authorized. May God have mercy on you all. In the darkness of space, something was coming, and humanity's silent watchers were finally ready to step from the shadows. The Reckoning. United Nations General Assembly, New York, 2080. The cavernous hall had never been so silent. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat motionless, many pale with shock, as they absorbed the classified presentation that had just concluded. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo, her usual diplomatic composure strained, stepped back to the podium. Distinguished representatives, I understand this is overwhelming, but I must emphasize that time is of the essence. The Sarcesian Collective's fleet will reach our solar system in less than 3 weeks. The Chinese delegate was the first to break the stunned silence. This Nightfall initiative operated for decades without oversight, without accountability. With the authorization of a secret UN subcommittee, Okonkwo corrected, representatives from all Security Council nations have been involved since its inception. That's not the point. The Brazilian delegate stood, his voice shaking. You've been developing military technology, establishing off-world colonies, all in secret. Dr. James Chen stepped forward. We did what was necessary to prepare humanity for this exact scenario. The Antarctic probe proved we weren't alone. The Nightfall Initiative ensured we wouldn't be defenseless. The hall erupted into chaos. Accusations, demands, expressions of disbelief. Secretary General Okonkwo let it continue for exactly 1 minute before striking her gavel with enough force to crack its wooden base. Enough. Her voice cut through the din. We can debate the ethics of secrecy after we survive what's coming. Director Chen, please continue with the briefing on our defensive capabilities. As Chen activated the holographic display showing Earth's hidden fleet, murmurs spread through the assembly. For many, the shock of aliens approaching was now competing with the revelation of how advanced human technology had secretly become. CS Phoenix, Mars Orbit, 2080. Admiral Wei Zhang stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, watching as the final ships of the Phantom Fleet moved into formation. 17 capital ships, 43 support vessels, and hundreds of fighter craft. The sum total of humanity's secret space force. Status report, he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of decades of preparation. All vessels report ready. Admiral, his executive officer responded. Quantum shields at full capacity. Weapons systems online. Stealth systems activated. Zhang nodded, studying the tactical display. The fleet was currently invisible to conventional detection methods, a feat of engineering that had taken decades to perfect. He'd devoted his entire career to Nightfall, following in his grandfather's footsteps, all for this moment. Incoming transmission from Earth Command, the communications officer announced. President Nichols appeared on the main screen, his face grave. Admiral Zhang, Operation Eclipse is now fully authorized. The public announcement will begin in 6 hours. All world governments are aligned, if not entirely happy about it. Understood, Mr. President. The fleet is ready. What are our chances, Admiral? Truthfully. Zhang considered his answer carefully. The Sarcesians outnumber us 4-1. Their technology appears comparable in some areas, potentially superior in others. But they don't know we exist. His lips curved into a slight smile. And surprise can be a powerful advantage. The President nodded. Good hunting, Admiral. Earth is counting on you, whether they know it yet or not. As the transmission ended, Zhang turned to his crew. Set course for the Heliopause. We'll intercept the Sarcesian fleet before they reach Neptune's orbit. The Phoenix and its escorts accelerated away from Mars, their quantum drives generating localized distortions in space-time that propelled them faster than any publicly known technology could achieve. In 6 hours, humanity would learn the truth about what lurked among the stars. And shortly after, so would the Sarcesians. Global Broadcasting Networks, Worldwide, 2080. We interrupt all programming for this global emergency broadcast. Across Earth, on television screens, phones, public displays, and network devices, regular content vanished, replaced by the United Nations emblem. Billions watched as Secretary General Okonkwo appeared, flanked by world leaders. Citizens of Earth, she began, her voice calm but grave. Today, humanity faces its greatest challenge. We are not alone in the universe, and we are about to make first contact with an extraterrestrial civilization known as the Sarcesian Collective. In homes, offices, and public spaces around the world, people froze in disbelief. Their fleet will reach our solar system within 3 weeks. Their intentions are unknown, but we must prepare for all possibilities. She paused, visibly bracing herself. There is more you must know. For nearly 5 decades, Earth's governments have been secretly preparing for this moment. What followed was a carefully structured revelation of the Nightfall Initiative, the Antarctic probe discovery, the hidden technological advancements, the secret fleet now positioning to meet the alien armada. In a small apartment in Lagos, a mother clutched her children closer. In a Tokyo office, workers stared at the screens in stunned silence. In a classroom in Buenos Aires, a teacher reached for her students' hands. The broadcast continued for over an hour, explaining what was known about the Sarsegians, the defensive preparations being activated, and the emergency protocols that would take effect immediately. As it concluded, Secretary General Okonkwo leaned forward, her expression intensely personal. This is not the end. This is humanity's introduction to a wider universe. Stand together. Have faith in each other and in those who have worked in silence to protect you. We will face this dawn together. The broadcast ended, leaving billions to grapple with a fundamentally altered reality. Heliopause Interception Point, 2080. On the bridge of the Phoenix, Admiral Zhang watched the approaching Sarsegian fleet on the long-range sensors. Their vessels were massive, organic-looking constructs of gleaming copper and black metal that moved with unnatural precision. They'd dropped out of their FTL equivalent, reported the science officer. Current speed at 0.05 key and decelerating. Estimated arrival at Neptune in 12 hours. Any sign they've detected us? Zhang asked. Negative, Admiral. Stealth systems functioning at optimal levels. Commander Elena Reyes, who had transferred from Nightfall Command to serve as Zhang's tactical officer, studied the sensor readings. Their formation is military in nature. Forward screening vessels, heavy ships protected in the center. They're approaching as if expecting resistance. But they believe we're a pre-spacefaring civilization, Zhang mused. So why the combat formation? Standard protocol, perhaps, Rai suggested. Or they've encountered unexpected resistance before. Zhang's eyes narrowed. Which means they've done this before. Targeted other worlds. The communications officer interrupted. Admiral, we're detecting a transmission from the lead Sarsegian vessel. It's being broadcast on all frequencies, directed toward Earth. Let's hear it. The bridge speakers emitted a series of clicks and warbling tones before shifting into accented but understandable English. People of Earth, this is High Commander Vorex of the Sarsegian Collective. Your world has been selected for integration into our expanding dominion. Your resources and biosphere meet our requirements. Surrender your planetary control systems within one standard rotation or face immediate pacification. Resistance is unnecessary and inadvisable. We have studied your capabilities and determined you cannot oppose us effectively. Accept integration, and your species will be preserved as productive members of the collective. The message repeated twice before ending. The bridge remained silent until Zhang finally spoke. Well, that answers the question of their intentions. He stood from his command chair. Commence Operation Eclipse. All vessels maintain stealth protocols until we reach optimal engagement range. Presidential Situation Room, Washington, D.C., 2080. President Nichols and his crisis team listened to the Sarsegian ultimatum with grim expressions. They're not even pretending to be friendly, observed the Secretary of Defense. Integration, repeated the President. Pacification. The language of colonizers throughout human history. Dr. Chen nodded. Their message confirms our worst-case assessment. They see Earth as a resource to be harvested, not as a home to an equal species. The President's National Security Advisor leaned forward. Sir, public reaction to the broadcast has been remarkably measured so far. Isolated incidents of panic, but generally, people are following emergency protocols. However, this ultimatum will not be publicly released, the President finished firmly. Not yet. The Sarcesians expect an answer in one standard rotation, whatever that means, but they're going to get a different kind of response first. He turned to the military liaison. Status of Admiral Zhang's fleet. Moving into position now, sir. The Sarcesians still haven't detected them. The president's expression hardened. Then let's introduce ourselves properly. Edge of the solar system, 2080. The Sarcesian fleet continued its methodical advance toward the inner planets, unaware that they were being shadowed by vessels their sensors couldn't detect. Admiral Zhang had positioned the Phantom fleet in a three-dimensional envelopment pattern, preparing to strike from multiple vectors simultaneously. All ships report ready. Admiral, Commander Reyes confirmed. Awaiting your command. Zhang studied the tactical display one final time. Earth had one chance to establish itself as a power the Sarcesians couldn't simply brush aside. The element of surprise would never be this perfect again. Open a channel to all Phantom vessels, he ordered. When the communications officer nodded, Zhang addressed his fleet. Men and women of Earth's Defense Force, for 50 years we have prepared in silence for this day. You carry with you the hopes of 8 billion souls who, until hours ago, didn't know you existed. Today, we show these Sarcesians, and ourselves, what humanity is capable of. He paused, looking at the determined faces of his bridge crew. Deactivate stealth systems. Power all weapons. Execute attack pattern Epsilon. Across the void, 17 capital ships and their escorts suddenly appeared on Sarcesian sensors, their quantum shields generating a distinctive energy signature as they powered to full capacity. Before the aliens could respond to this shock, the human vessels launched their first coordinated attack. CSS Phoenix, Edge of Solar System, 2080. Direct hit on their lead vessel. Reyes called out as the Phoenix's main quantum disruptors found their mark. The Sarcesian shift shields flared brilliant blue under the assault. The alien fleet was scrambling to respond to the unexpected attack, their tight formation breaking apart as they tried to bring weapons to bear on opponents that had materialized from nowhere. Their shields are holding, Reyes continued, but power fluctuations detected. They weren't at full combat readiness. Zhang nodded in satisfaction. The surprise had worked. Sarcesian vessels attempting to regroup, the tactical officer reported. They're launching fighter craft. Deploy our countermeasures, Zhang ordered. Maintain pressure on their command ships. The space between the fleets lit up with weapons fire, human quantum disruptors against Sarcesian plasma weapons. The initial exchange favored Earth's forces, who had planned this moment down to the smallest detail, but the aliens were rapidly adapting. Incoming transmission from the Sarcesian command ship, the communications officer announced. Zhang straightened his uniform. On screen, the main display showed a humanoid figure with distinctly alien features, iridescent scales covering copper-colored skin, 4 yellow eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and a mouth full of needle-like teeth. The High Commander's expression was difficult to read, but the tension in his posture was universal enough. Unknown vessels, you defend Earth. Your technology exceeds our intelligence assessments. This is Admiral Y. Zhang of Earth's Defense Fleet. Your assessment was flawed, High Commander. Earth is not yours to integrate or pacify. We reject your ultimatum. The alien's upper eyes narrowed. Impossible. Our surveys indicated a primitive spacefaring civilization at best. You have been hiding your capabilities. The last words carried a note of grudging respect. A wise precaution, as it turns out, Zhang replied coldly. Your fleet will withdraw from our solar system immediately, or we will continue this demonstration of Earth's capabilities. You have achieved surprise, Admiral, but you are still outnumbered. The collective does not retreat. Then we have nothing more to discuss. Zhang signaled for the transmission to be cut. All vessels, execute attack pattern Omega. Target their propulsion systems. The Phantom fleet surged forward, pressing their advantage while it lasted. On the Phoenix's bridge, Zhang knew the real battle was just beginning. The Sarcesians might be surprised, but they weren't defeated. Not by a long shot. "Sir," Reyes called out, "3 Sarcesian vessels are breaking off, accelerating toward Earth." Zhang's expression darkened. "They're trying to divide our forces. Signal the Artemis and Orion battle groups to pursue and intercept. The rest of the fleet continues the primary engagement." As orders were relayed, the tactical display updated to show the shifting battlefield. The initial shock of humanity's hidden fleet was wearing off, and the Sarcesians were bringing their superior numbers to bear. 2 Earth vessels were already reporting heavy damage. "They're adapting to our attack patterns," Reyes observed, "modifying their shields to counter our disruptors." Zhang nodded grimly. "As expected. Initiate secondary protocols. Let's see how they handle our other surprises." Lunar Defense Command, Dark Side of the Moon, 2080. General Fatima Hassan watched the battle unfolding near the edge of the solar system with intense focus. As commander of Earth's orbital defenses, she knew that the Phantom Fleet was only the first line of protection. If the Sarcesians broke through, and the odds suggested they eventually would, the fight would come to her doorstep. "Status of the Umbra Grid," she demanded. "All defense satellites at full readiness, General," her operations officer replied. "The Mars and Venus installations are also online." Hassan nodded, her attention returning to the tactical display. 3 Sarcesian vessels had broken from the main battle and were accelerating toward the inner planets. Zhang's fleet had dispatched pursuers, but it wasn't clear if they would intercept in time. "Prepare to activate the Gatekeeper protocols," she ordered, "and alert Earth Command that we may have incoming." As her staff rushed to comply, Hassan studied the enemy vessel's approach vector. Something wasn't right. They weren't heading directly for Earth, but toward. "They're targeting our Jupiter mining stations," she realized aloud. "They know about our infrastructure," which meant the Sarcesians had been watching Earth far more closely than anyone had suspected. The Antarctic probe might not have been their first or only observation method. The question was, what else did they know? Sarcesian Command Vessel Dominant Will, Edge of Solar System, 2080. High Commander Vorex raged as another human vessel evaded his ship's targeting systems, somehow bending sensor readings around itself before reappearing to strike from an unexpected vector. "How is this possible?" he demanded of his science officer. "Your intelligence indicated nothing of these capabilities." The science officer's scales paled with fear. "The humans have been deliberately concealing their technological advancement, High Commander. Our long-range observations detected only their public space activities." Vorex hissed in frustration. The collective had conquered 11 systems before this one, and never encountered such deception. Most species proudly displayed their achievements, making them easy to assess and counter. "Status of our detached vessels," he demanded. Proceeding toward the gas giant mining operations, his tactical officer reported. "Minimal pursuit from human forces." At least that stratagem was working. The resource extraction facilities orbiting the gas giant would make suitable staging areas for the reinforcements already en route. This initial resistance, while irritating, would ultimately prove futile. "Signal all vessels," Vorex commanded. "Shift to Dominance Protocol 3. Let us show these humans the true might of the collective." As his orders spread through the fleet, Vorex watched the battle with cold calculation. The humans had surprised them, yes, but the outcome was still inevitable. The collective always prevailed. Always. CSS Phoenix, Edge of Solar System, 2080. "Admiral, they're changing formation," Reyes reported urgently. Energy readings spiking across their fleet. Zhang gripped his command chair as the Phoenix shuddered under enemy fire. "They're done testing us. Now they really start fighting." The tactical display showed the Sarcesian vessels moving into a new configuration, a spherical formation that allowed them to concentrate fire from multiple angles. 3 Earth vessels were already heavily damaged, their shields failing under the coordinated assault. "Order the Athena and Poseidon to fall back and protect our damaged ships," Zhang commanded. "All other vessels, Execute dispersal pattern echo. We need to break up their formation. As his orders were carried out, Zhang opened a secure channel to Earth Command. President Nichols appeared on the screen, his expression questioning. "We've engaged the enemy, Mr. President," Zhang reported. Initial surprise was effective, but they're regrouping. 3 of their vessels have broken through toward Jupiter. I've dispatched pursuers, but they may reach our mining operations before we can intercept. Casualties? The President asked quietly. None confirmed yet, but the Dauntless, Intrepid, and Valiant are reporting critical damage. We're attempting to withdraw them from the immediate battlefield. The President nodded gravely. And your assessment of our chances? Zhang hesitated, aware that his crew was watching. The battle has just begun, sir. But I would advise activating all Earthside defense systems. This may well come to our doorstep before it's over. Understood, Admiral. Earth stands with you. As the transmission ended, Zhang turned to find Commander Ray studying him intently. We're losing, aren't we? She asked quietly, positioning herself so only he could hear. Zhang's expression remained impassive. No, but we're not winning either. He gestured to the tactical display. They outnumber us 4-1. Our only advantages were surprise and our quantum technology. The surprise is gone, and they're adapting to our weapons faster than expected. Then what's our strategy? Zhang's eyes hardened. We make them pay so dearly for every meter of space that by the time they reach Earth, they'll be ready to negotiate rather than fight. He straightened in his chair. We may not win this battle, Commander, but that doesn't mean we'll lose the war. Around them, the void of space blazed with weapons fire as humanity's hidden guardians engaged the vanguard of an alien empire. The reckoning had begun, and the solar system would never be the same.